Jesus was walking through a city called Jericho, and a crowd was gathering. In fact, the crowd and gallery was so big, it was hard to even see Jesus. Within the crowd, there was a man named Zacchaeus. The Bible says he was a chief tax collector. What this tells me is Zacchaeus is, he kind of runs the streets. He runs the neighborhood. He has tax collectors under him that collect tax, and beyond that, cheat people out of their money, and he gets a cut from their scheming and their scamming. It was that day that Jesus was walking through his town, his city, and Zacchaeus, I think, was curious. He wanted to see who this Jesus really was, but the Bible says he was short. So he devised a plan to climb a tree. He ran ahead, kind of figuring out the trajectory of where Jesus would walk, and climbed a particular tree. And there he would view Jesus and learn more about this increasingly popular figure in his day. As the Bible says, as the Bible tells the story, Jesus was walking along until suddenly, right under the tree Zacchaeus had chosen to climb, Jesus stops. Zacchaeus must have thought to himself, man, it's like I just hit the lottery. This is unbelievable. He's right here under the tree that I've climbed, and I'm going to get to be privy to his conversations or to hear about this incredible figure I've heard so much about. And all of a sudden, everything changes for Zacchaeus, because the Bible says Jesus, when he came to the place, as if it was pre-planned, which of course it was, he came to the place and he looked up. He looked up, and there he saw Zacchaeus, and he said, Zacchaeus, come down. In fact, he said, I want you to hurry, because today I'm going to come to your house. Well, for Jesus to go to Zacchaeus' house it was unheard of. The crowd, the gallery that had gathered that day must have just been completely shocked to hear Jesus say that he was going to share a meal with such a crook, such a thug, such a cheat. Zacchaeus was not a reputable person. He was known, but he was infamous. His actions were inexplicable as he cheated little old ladies out of their retirement to pay for his opulent lifestyle. He was not a good man. And yet Jesus here stops and insists that Zacchaeus come down from his tree because he's going to go share a meal with him. This story is so powerful and illustrates so much for your life and for mine. And the Bible says that Jesus went with Zacchaeus to his house, and there they shared a meal. In my mind, I can see Zacchaeus inviting his employees, inviting his co-workers, his minions who work underneath him and cheat people, the Jews, out of their money as well. And I think it was a day where Zacchaeus must have been pretty proud of the fact that the leading candidate for Messiah is now sharing a meal with him in his home. Whatever transpires there and whatever their conversation is, we're not privy to. Jesus and Zacchaeus, and if he had guests, were there. For how long, we're not sure. But at some point in the dinner and in the conversation, Zacchaeus is so overcome, he's so overwhelmed by Jesus that, he does the unthinkable. The Bible indicates, and my imagination elaborates, that, Zacchaeus must have stood up from the table and, used his fork to ding his wine glass and say, could I have your attention, please? I'd like to make an announcement. I'm done. I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. That's a crazy statement. And then he says, look, if I've cheated anybody, I'm going to repay multiple times what I've taken. I'm going to repay to all those that I've cheated. That would have been a lot of people. This was Zacchaeus' only way of life. This is all he ever knew. This is how he made a living. This is how he supplied for those in his world and in his family. And yet, just one dinner with Jesus caused Zacchaeus to trade everything in. One conversation, one meal. Jesus is that amazing, that spectacular. When we consider all the possessions and things and desires of this life, nothing compares to the person of Jesus. Our behavior, our good deeds, our actions, none of these things can make us right with God. We are never enough. Only Jesus is enough. Only Jesus' perfect sacrifice on the cross is what makes us acceptable and right before God. Maybe like me, you've climbed a few trees in your journey with God as well, thinking that I'm going to garner God's attention. I'm going to appease him. I'm going to be good for him. I'm going to do better with my speech, or I'm going to pray so many hours, or I'm going to have perfect church attendance this year, or man, I'm going to read through my Bible in a year. And when I do that and when I complete that, then I'll be pleasing to God, and God will accept me. And the truth is, none of those things make us acceptable or right with God. Only Jesus. Our trust, all of our trust, must be in him. And so if you're like me and you've climbed some of those trees, like Zacchaeus, trying to get God's attention or appease him, let's hear the words of Jesus. Let's come down. Let's trust him. Let's focus on him. Let's turn our attention to him, just as Zacchaeus did. And that's ultimately what changed Zacchaeus' life. I wonder if we could take some time just thinking about, are there areas in my life I need to come down from? Areas that I'm trusting, certain deeds and actions and behaviors that I'm putting my trust in rather than putting my trust in Jesus.